Hello everybody, hope you're doing marvellously well. This episode we are going to go over guitar recording. I have a Carl Martin BandMate 15, which is a fairly clean amp. You can drive it with a gain pedal, but in this instance I'm going to keep it pretty clean because a lot of the comments we get from people are 99%, and I get it, of the recording guitar videos out there are all about heavy guitars. So this is a clean tone that we've set up here, and we're going to drive it using the Noble's ODR1, which a lot of you probably know very well. It's becoming a little bit of a session player's standard. Tim Pierce is the one that introduced me to it. It's a really great sounding pedal, and I ended up meeting the company, and they're really nice guys. And we're going to use a carbon copy for delay. So we're going to hear the tone clean, driven, bit of reverb, bit of delay, and you're going to hear every variation that we can do. Now, there are three methods we're going to talk about. The first one is just sticking your good old-fashioned, in this instance, SM57, but frankly, it can be most mid-price dynamics and even cheaper dynamics. And the other version is going to be using the back mic, because this is an open back cab. We're going to mic the back. And that microphone, because it's hearing exactly opposite, the polarity is going to be flipped so that you get perfect phase, or at least as near as darn it. And then of course the third version will be a double mic technique, which is often explained either as a 421, but has become most popular using ribbon mics. I do use ribbon mics occasionally, not often, but occasionally on guitar amps. And one of those favorites of course is the Royer 121, which is a relatively expensive mic. However, Royer themselves have brought out the R10, which we reviewed about a year ago, which is a much more affordable ribbon mic. So we're going to use that ribbon mic. So we're going to go over three completely different techniques, and we're going to hear them with different kinds of sound so you can get an idea of what might be best for you, given what kind of guitar sound you're going for. Okay, so we've got our Roadie amp. It's actually sitting on the top of the table here. And this is purely and simply for illustration purposes. There's a lot of discussion about where you would position the amp. And I do find you have different kind of bass responses depending on where you want to position it. Lots of people put them on concrete floors and say that's the best way. And to be honest, that's probably where we'd normally start. However, this is specifically done to illustrate how you record it. Okay, so this is going to be our first version of this, and which is a 57 only, a dynamic microphone only. Does it have to be a 57? No. Why do we use 57s? Because they are so widely used that our ear starts to hear guitar sounds like that. I remember talking to Eddie Kramer about this, about how a 57, for him, plus his, U67 and ribbon combination were like two of the things that he would do most often on guitar sounds. And so many engineers use these kind of combination of mics that our ears starts to think of that as being a great guitar sound. It's a little bit like snare drums. The Ludwig, Superphonic, or Black Beauty is on so many records that when you hear a snare drum you like, quite often it is a Ludwig snare. So I suppose it's familiarity breeds contempt is probably one way of looking at it. But look, here is, it's really difficult to see from the camera, but it's right on the middle at the moment. So it's centered right on the dust cap. I don't expect you to see it that easily. However, we've got Eric's phone here, and we're shining it in here, and I can see the dust cap. So the dust cap is the brightest part of the sound. So let's have a listen to just that. So I'm going to put on headphones here. We're in the same room for illustration purposes. So we have the microphone right on the center of the dust cap. This is at its brightest sound. Good old-fashioned open chords, great way to just hear the sound. So I can feel the edge of the speaker here, so I'm going to go right to the very edge over here on the right. Okay. So let's now listen to that. It's nice. It doesn't quite have that sparkle. But it's still kind of a nice tone. I mean, if I was going to do a sort of a jazzy kind of lick. It's nice. Okay, so it's a nice tone. However, why not try to get the best of both worlds? This is where the back microphone will come into play. Now, if you can get in here, I've just pulled this stand down here. And what I'm going to do, and this was Dave Jerden showed me this and many other great guys as well. I'm pointing like at the same angle of it. So the speaker, if it's in this sort of direction here, we're going to have the microphone coming in against it, and then we're going to oppose it on the other side. So what will that do? That will give us almost exact polarity, you know, opposite polarity. So let's just tighten this up in position. Okay, so it's pretty close. I don't want it to be touching the cab, obviously, because we're going to hear the vibrations. It's basically about halfway in on the side of the speaker. So let's move around to the front. Okay, so I actually can see, because of this beautiful vent here, where the microphone's coming in, which is rather fortuitous to say the least. So now what I can do is I can get it exactly opposed, which is freaking awesome. Okay, so now I've got this exactly opposite. And what's interesting as well, and this is very Dave Jerden, is it's following the cone. So if you imagine the cone's shaped like this, the microphone is exactly at a right angle against it, and it's opposite. So now we have them, and it's about halfway inside of it. So here's the edge and here's the dust cap, and you can see it's about halfway. So that's kind of nice. So let's have a listen with and without the back. Now, the back mic, and this is the most important part. The back microphone's polarity has been flipped. It has been reversed. Why is that? Well, if the speaker is moving forward like this, the microphone is going to be seeing the sound waves traveling towards it like this. The other microphone on the back is going to see the reverse. So to get the proper polarity, the back one needs to have its phase/polarity reversed. The reason why I use phase and polarity is because there's so much confusion about the proper terminology. It's best just to mention both of them. All right, so headphones are on. Everything's set exactly the same way as it was before. So this is now the guitar sound with the back microphone in as well. It's got so much more low end in it. What I'm going to do now is mute the back microphone. And it's to adjust the front. Add the back. It's beautiful what it does. It just adds some more girth to it. I mean, this is a trick from years ago of back miking. And Dave Jerden, who did all those massive guitar sounds with Alice in Chains and Jane's Addiction, that was one of his tricks, to take small amplifiers with open back cabs and then double mic them. Listen to what it does with the gain from our Roadie R1 Nobles Overdrive. I mean, that's a little 15-watt combo. It's just got so much girth, and we're not applying any EQ or anything, just the sound of the amp with the Nobles. The Spectrum, which is the EQ, is set pretty much in the middle, so it's the sound of this double mic'd cab. Front only. Front and back. It's a fantastic trick. Really, really nice trick. Used a lot, and I've heard all kinds of different ideas of miking guitars, but this is one of the biggest ones for me, just to give you more low end. So I'm going to take the back cable here and use it on the Roya R10. The R10 is something that we reviewed a little while ago, and you know, I wouldn't say it was cheap, but it's definitely affordable compared to most ribbon mics. And to be honest, I was really, really impressed with it. As much as I love the 121, which is, you know, an industry standard now, this is a pretty darn good mic. The way to get the best out of this is to put this on the dust cap. So I'm going to take the Roya and put that on the center because, of course, a ribbon microphone is darker. And then position the 57 against it. Now, most of the guys and girls that I admire who do this will not only butt it up against the side of it, but will also point towards it, really getting that field pretty tight. We're going to angle the 57, get it super close, and of course we can move this around, but we've got to be careful that if we start separating these mics too much, we might mess with our phase, with our polarity, and we might get some weird low-end cancellation. So that should be a relatively bright sound because, of course, the 57 is also pointed at the dust cap. Let's check it out. So we've got the Roya now on the dust cap. Ribbons are generally darker. One of the things that makes them a little brighter is, believe it or not, is actually this grill, because some of the reflections can make it a little brighter. So you'll notice on some ribbon microphones, they have really aggressive looking grills, which add to the brightness. That reminds me almost of the edge of the speaker. I mean, it's beautiful, it's very warm. So now with the 57 on the dust cap, it's brighter, with the fuller, warmer sound, if you like, low midlier sound of the ribbon. Let's try that with some distortion. Some delays. Crank some reverb on the amp. So it's a pretty darn good tone, and this is an amp that's quite clean, as you can tell, so the drive is all coming from the pedal. We're not getting that additional assistance from, you know, the drive of the amp cracking up. I do like the amp to do that, so typically I would normally hit the amp a little harder. But this is a nice kind of compromise. So you have a choice. You either have a beautiful, relatively expensive ribbon microphone, or you have two inexpensive $100-ish dynamics to get pretty similar results. So it's a nice kind of way of looking at this. The main thing about this is the tonality of this mic. The fact that the ribbon has that extra warmth, doesn't reproduce the super, super high highs in the same way that the 57 does, which has a presence lift. Because it doesn't have that, it allows you to take a guitar sound, it allows you to create the warmth that you would from a back. However, bear in mind, if you want to save money and you have an open back cab, you can get similar results. So it's kind of 6 of one, half a dozen of the other. I love both options, and typically I reach for a 57 front and back more often than anything else. And a lot of guys I know do that as well. But having a beautiful ribbon is going to give you similar and different kind of tone palettes as well. So thanks ever so much. Hope you enjoyed that. Quick shout out to the PRS Veiler. You know I was at TGU 19, Thoman's Gearhead University, and that's where I first tried one of these. And subsequently, I got one. That's how much I love it. So shout out to the PRS. Shout out, of course, to Nobles for the beautiful ODR1. We're using the MXR carbon copy, and of course, the Roadie by Carl Martin, which I think is a really rather wonderful amp. It's not cheap, but it's used it quite a lot. I've traveled with this sometimes. I made a whole album about a year ago, and this was the main guitar amp for the lead guitarist on the whole record. So very versatile amp. Now, what are your techniques? Now, obviously we didn't get into miking rooms, we didn't get into pulling back, or, you know, ambient miking, or any of the many other things that we can do. But to be frank, these are the basic things that I do. I do use 421s sometimes, very occasionally, or RE20s alongside the 57. But for me, these three ways of recording, 57 on front, 57 on the back, and Royer married together with a 57 are the main ways that I record guitars. And frankly, the main way that I see people recording guitars. Feel free, of course, to swap out and use different ribbon microphones, whatever you can afford. Of course, feel free to try different dynamic microphones. To be honest, you may find something which is uniquely your sound. A 57 has a certain footprint that it puts in there that we like on guitars and we like on snare drums in particular, but there may be other, even more inexpensive dynamic microphones that can also give you similar, if not more intriguing and different results that could be your sound and your individual thing that is for your creativity. So please leave a bunch of comments and questions below. Hope this all made sense. Please ask more questions about it. And also, I'd love to know, how do you record guitars? Have a marvelous time recording and mixing. Thanks for watching.